Hi everyone, Adam Harris here. It is Sunday evening, the 22nd of November, and I'm going to be having a look at the major currencies. I'm going to start off with the US dollar index. All right, so looking at it on the weekly basis, the flow is still predominantly to the downside. Price is hovering above 92, potentially testing that for support, but not looking incredibly strong at this point. It's leaning more, visually at least, towards wanting to break below that. The monthly as well, having disregarded the previous bullish candle, now looks increasingly bearish. And on the daily, we've produced a lower high. We are definitely testing this area of support around about, let's just go ahead and mark this around about the 92.20 area. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a barrier around there. And so what I'm going to be looking for this week is to see if price can indeed manage to recover, start to break the previous high, if perhaps it can exceed the high here of Wednesday the 11th at 93.19. But I'm leaning more towards it potentially failing, coming back down and testing 92. I'm then going to be looking at the price action behavior, looking more for fuller, more bearish candles rather than a lot of rejections or shadows underneath. I'll be looking for more solid closes towards these key levels. If that happens, then a likely break below this, or at least certainly a break below that becomes more likely. Moving on and having a look at the euro dollar. So again, euro dollar is still within this range. I find that interesting. It's still stuck within this range. It is absolutely struggling to break above that kind of 1.1875, certainly get above 1.19 level. However, it doesn't necessarily mean it won't succeed in that. It's just that this is definitely where its battle lies, and it is struggling. Looking at it in isolation, it wouldn't surprise me if ultimately it did fail from this. I'm looking at the monthly, a retracement here, and so far a semi-bullish candle, mostly bullish candle, actually a bullish outside candle or engulfing candle is generally a positive sign. And the weekly is not really giving a lot away. Price has been largely range bound and isn't really giving too much away. There's strong support down at 1.16 and strong resistance at the top of the range. So this week, what I'm going to be looking for is to see if price can indeed manage to work its way over that level outside of that range. If that's the case, then I see a free run up towards 1.2. Supporting the idea, of course, of a weaker US dollar. Then having a look at sterling. All right, so this is where it does get interesting. This area's got some similar rejections. However, noting here that the current candle of it is actually looking more bullish. So Friday managed to close well into this as opposed to closing as a rejection, but it still really needs to break free of that. So you can see the similarities here between sterling and euro versus the US dollar. The weekly as well continuing onwards from a bit of a failure last week, and certainly a higher low on that monthly time frame. So all of this supports on a monthly as well as weekly basis a slightly stronger sterling versus the US dollar. But I do want to see it get free of this resistance. And this resistance is not so much due to sterling as it is towards the US dollar holding support on its side. Then having a look at the Australian dollar against the US dollar, it's also got a similar level region here of resistance. This structure here, this bearish resistance structure. And I need to see price break through that, but actually even more importantly, get price over that 73.50 level, over and above that. Now looking at it here on a weekly basis, nice level of support. We've broken to the upside, but we still have to get outside that range. And that monthly basis of a retracement and a bullish candle, again, is sort of a bullish outside candle, bullish engulfing candle. Again, it hints at a weaker dollar. It looks as though the majors and minors are strengthening against that US dollar, but it isn't over until the fat lady sings, or at least until we get outside that range, we break through that. Kiwi Dollar being a star performer last week. New Zealand dollar here, you could see it's encountering resistance. However, it's still pushing through. It's pushing higher, managed to close a lot higher over the week. A really nice, significant higher candle on the weekly. And that monthly candle, you can see the most bullish of the 5 charts we've looked at so far. So all of this certainly supporting, again, a weaker US dollar against the Kiwi dollar, and the Kiwi dollar being the one that has managed to break free of its restraints. And it's a good indication of its individual or independent strength. All right, so that's why it's been very popular in terms of trading opportunities last week. Then having a look at Dolly Yen. So looking at it on a monthly basis, it is definitely dripping lower, right, so far. That's looking nice and bearish. It's not pretty in terms of the fact that it's very volatile on the lower time frames. The weekly here also having pulled through and produced a bearish candle against previous resistance. Now leans again, if we break the low of this, leans towards the idea of a weaker US dollar, stronger yen. Looking at it on a daily basis, we had this very strong reaction off the lows, and we've just given a lot of that back. Okay, this could potentially turn out to be a higher low. So similar to some of the other charts, I need to see it continue down and break this. But look at the monthly and weekly in isolation or separate from the daily. They look more bearish than bullish, and therefore my expectation so far is to see them continue to head lower, which supports a weaker US dollar. Then having a look at dollar Swiss, you can see similar to the euro dollar, it's got very strong resistance. It's got a kind of support structure here that it is trying to effectively break free of or break below that. So that's what I'll be watching for, is to see, does price manage to get move a little bit lower here? Is that going to be the case? Does it manage to fall through this? If that's the case, it's going to move down to 0.9. We're going to see the dollar move. We're going to see the euro move as well. Subsequently, that current monthly candle looking a little bit more bullish than bearish. But ultimately, if we can close lower, the implication being, again, we'll start to creep towards that level of support at 0.9 and break through that ultimately. And that weekly producing lower highs going into it with a potentially bearish inside indecision candle so far. All of this, especially if we break the low of that this week on the weekly chart, leaning again towards a weaker US dollar. Dollar CAD, all right, again, similar, has this bullish structure. It's really trying to stay above what's going on over here. It's trying to stay above these levels. That's interesting. I just lost that little thing. Must be my mouse pointer being a bit sensitive. So yeah, a bit of a bullish structure. It's trying to stay above this base, that weekly producing a bullish candle 2 weeks ago. We didn't break above the high, but we've got a bearish candle at the moment. Still have lower highs going into it, and we have definitely got a monthly candle that has broken through the previous lows. So there is weakness in this market showing that dollar CAD can move lower. It does have the potential to do it. I wouldn't count that as a very strong rejection at this point in time. And since we didn't break through the high of last week, again, there isn't a lot of strength. But it does show that there is a almost even battle between the bulls and the bears. But in this case, it appears the bulls are able to hold them off, but not enough to turn the tide. And so that is what I'll be looking for this week, to see if they ultimately give back and we see the market start to break through these lows, heading down towards 1.3, if that's the case. As I said last week, it was interesting to see Dolly Yen, dollar Swiss, and dollar CAD generally on the same side in terms of agreement. I'd be interested to see if that is the case this coming week. All of them hint at a weaker US dollar, so I'm going to position myself from that. And as I usually say, I'll just be monitoring for any distinct changes, any breaks of the trends where we break a previous high instead of continuing to the downside. Those are examples of where I would then revisit it. But right now, the momentum leans towards a weaker US dollar. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great week.